Yeah, well, welcome, James, very much to our community call here. And I'm always excited to kind of host these things when we have special guests because we get to learn about other protocols and more importantly about how those other protocols might have an integration or a synergy with Rocket Pool. But why don't you go ahead and start us and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what is Hexagon?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you all having me on, and yeah, really excited to share a bit of information about Hexagon with everybody here. So, um, I guess to give a little context with the history of Golem. So, back in 2016, Golem had a very successful crowd raise. I think in 30 minutes they raised about 820,000 ETH. So really successful there, and fast forward to 2019, and the appreciation of ETH had obviously skyrocketed. The founders of the initial Golem project realized that because they were sitting on such a tremendous amount of funding, um, part of the team decided to step away from the core mission, which was building a peer-to-peer marketplace for computing power. And so a separate entity that we call Golem Foundation spun off in 2019 to pursue ventures beyond that initial mission. So Golem Factory still humming away, building that marketplace that I just mentioned. And so I sit on the Golem Foundation side where we've been working on a few different things, but what I'm going to talk to you today obviously is about Hexagon. So with that split in 2019, we took with it a third of the remaining crowdfunding funds. So today I think it sits at around 105,000 ETH. And so that's going to be primarily what's going to be driving Hexagon. So the way that we've set Hexagon up is we're going to be staking up to 100,000 ETH and then using the rewards of that ETH to um, reward users of the application. So proportional to the amount of GLM, which is our native token, proportional to how much they choose to time lock in the application every 3 months, they will receive a subsequent Ethereum reward. Now, what we're really interested in is what tends to incentivize a user to donate to causes outside of themselves. So we're setting up a matching reward that will allow for our users, should they choose to donate to projects outside of themselves, their money is going to go further. And so that's why I'm reaching out to Rocket Pool and some other projects that are kicking butt in the space like Gitcoin and Protocol Guild. A lot of these guys and gals, I should say, that have a reputation of doing really great things in the space. You're clearly a public good, and these are the types of projects I think that we ultimately want to be able to support with this project. So, in a nutshell, you can consider Hexagon as like a sandbox for decentralized governance and funding experiments. And along the way, we really want to be able to support other projects in the space that maybe could use a little funding.
Okay, interesting. And let me see if we could break this down a little bit for our listeners, right? So I guess the Golem Foundation, it's a public goods entity that has a fair amount of Ethereum that it wishes to, for lack of a better word, I'll call invest or stake and earn a return on that Ethereum in staking. And what that the profits earned from that staking returns, that is actually now going to either be returned to the Golem holders or be used for the actual intended public good purpose. Or help me walk through it a little
Yeah,
bit more.
yeah, totally. So one of the primary initiatives that our founders are interested in is developing a decentralized governance model. We call it the user-defined organization, and we've been putting a lot of effort into developing this. And so Hexagon is in a way going to provide us empirical evidence into um, what incentivizes users to with real money to take that money and donate it to various causes. So I guess I'm sorry. Walk back the question again. I want to make sure that I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to figure out the business flow of this or the mechanics of it, right? Which is that the Golem Foundation, I guess, has money that it wants to put forward to public goods, and I guess if I'm understanding what I've been trying to read about it is that instead of burning into the principal, instead of just donating the ETH away, I guess it intends to stake that ETH and instead use the ETH rewards, the staking rewards, and use that as its contribution to public goods. Is that a fair approximation of it? Or
Yeah, that's very fair. And so to go a little bit further, I mean, that's why I reached out initially to Nick. You know, as far as I can tell, you know, through conversations with him and just over the years, you know, I've been in the Web3 or the Ethereum ecosystem since 2016. And in my opinion, you know, clearly Rocket Pool is a public good. I think, you know, you all have core principles of being fully decentralized and trustless and open source. And if I remember correctly, you know, you all have consistently shown that you value decentralization and the security of the ETH protocol above all else. And so that fundamentally is in line with Golem Foundation and subsequently Hexagon. So that's why I more or less see alignment there and wanting to be able to support, you know, projects that fundamentally are mission driven in this way.
yeah, I think your kind of generalization of Rocket Pool is very, very much true. In fact, there's an ongoing vote right now about self-limiting, and I haven't looked at it today, but at least as of yesterday, I believe it was still a unanimous vote that we should, you know, first and foremost, we are validators of the Ethereum network, right? Our goal, our mission is to help secure that network, and you know, there's a vote for actually kind of limit the maximum size of Rocket Pool so it doesn't pose a threat to the Ethereum network as a whole. I mean, we're still quite a ways away from there, but given our growth trajectory, we certainly could be at that point within a relatively you know, foreseeable future. And so I think it does speak very strongly to kind of the ethos that Rocket Pool is part of Ethereum, and you know, our job is to help power Ethereum.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see this as well. That's another reason why we are staking that 100,000 ETH in the first place. You know, we want to be able to provide that security for the Ethereum ecosystem and yeah, and just contribute, and also just to give thanks back to Ethereum. You know, Ethereum obviously has been very good to Golem Foundation, and so I think supporting it in any way we can ultimately makes sense.
Okay. Now, I have two kind of questions from our conversation here. I guess one is how do you determine, I guess, what public goods efforts to fund? Is that something that the GLM holders get to decide, or do they get a return on their investment, or is it just simply they hold credits and they get a direct where the public funding of those earned credits go?
Yeah, that's been a bit tricky. So, you know, since Hexagon is obviously at a very early stage in its development, when we were sitting around and having these discussions about, you know, what qualifies and chatting with some of the community members about it, very quickly we realized that there would be thousands upon thousands of projects that I think um, could align in one way or another with the ethos of Golem Foundation and Hexagon. So we decided to take a step back and ask ourselves, you know, where do we want to start with all of this? And I think one of the major things that we kept coming back to was, you know, an established reputation and walking the walk, so to speak, with decisions being made and values and core principles. So um, that's why we're more or less um, choosing the projects from early on from an internal discussion. Some of the projects that we've landed on, like Protocol Guild, have come from community members. So there's been a little bit of say there. But as far as like a decentralization aspect goes, it's been pretty centralized from the early stages here. But we want to start moving more towards a decentralized aspect. So we're having conversations now about how to set up the process by which community members can propose projects to be whitelisted through the application, and then how community members can vote on those proposals so that um, ultimately we're valuing the community input and also listening to, you know, ultimately what the community is interested in supporting through this funding initiative.
Oh, excellent, excellent. That sounds absolutely fascinating. The other question I kind of have is, since you mentioned that part of your business model is to, instead of spending down the principal of the nonprofit or the organization, right, it's to just put it into, for lack of a better word, a trust, and allow the returns or the rewards of that to fund the public goods. That kind of helps, I suppose, create a sustained, a sustained model that is. Capable of continuing on for a long period of time. They do this a lot in public nonprofits or trust universities and so forth. So then I guess in that case, if you're going to earn returns on staking, there's two ways, of course, as you know, to stake. One is to stake as an LSD holder or a liquid staking derivative holder. The other is to run a node and be a node operator. Has Hexagon thought or Golem thought about how it wants to actually invest their Ethereum in staking? Is it through the LSD side of the house, or is it through the node operator side of the house?
Yeah, so we're still researching that right now. I know that our team has been in good contact with the Nimbus client team, and so for the sake of security, I know that they were going to be looking towards potentially developing their own solution towards staking. Now, because we align very much with what Rocket Pool is doing, I've also chatted with my founders about setting up a node as well, and we're interested in going that side of things. I just know that I think we're going to be setting up our own staking solution first via the support of the Nimbus team, and then once we have a little more bandwidth after this is off the ground, starting to explore the node side via Rocket Pool.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I speak very highly of the Nimbus team. I know it's one of my personal favorite clients. Not that all four of them are soon to be are all great, but yeah, they're certainly well respected. And as you guys evaluate different protocols to stake on, I'll certainly give the sales pitch that you earn a greater return staking on with Rocket Pool, because not only will you earn a return on your ETH, but you'll also be helping others that are taking the LSD side of the house. And for helping them out, you'll earn a node commission on that. So it's a way to possibly return a little bit more value to the Golem Foundation in terms of the earnings that it will get to help do greater public goods to the Ethereum network.
Yeah, that's fair, and I'll definitely mention that to my team. I'm not sure if they're fully aware of the schematics that you outlined there, but yeah, absolutely, more than happy to circle back with them about that and get their thoughts there and maybe explore it a little bit deeper.
One other question I have here, and I don't know if Mav has any questions, but one of the things I'm always curious about is we have a lot of rocket pullers that are either listening to this live or will listen to it in the replay afterwards here. If they want to get more interested in Hexagon and what it's doing and the Golem Foundation, how do you recommend that they learn more about it, and how can one participate in this public funding effort?
Yeah, it's a great question. So on the profile here on Twitter, we have our docs that outline at a high level how everything works, how you can get involved. We just set up a Discord channel, and we're more than willing and very eager to chat with any community members that either have some questions or maybe have some ideas that they want to share about maybe where we can take this. One of the things I'm really excited about with Hexagon is I don't think we claim by any measure that we have everything figured out already. And so, beyond the MVP launch, we're really interested in different things around delegation and maybe some reputation-based systems, using SBTs or testing different Ethereum layer 2 solutions, anti-Sybil mechanisms. There's a lot of different conversations about future iterations of what Hexagon will look like. And we want to have conversations with community members that are interested in any of these topics and others as well. So if you have the time and want to stop by our Discord and have a conversation about that, we would love for you to do so. And other than that, yeah, maybe checking out the docs and seeing if any questions or other ideas come up. And yeah, it's just having conversations and iterating from there and seeing where this goes.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I don't have a question necessarily, but an observation that obviously Golem Foundation and by extension Hexagon and Rocket Pool have a lot of things in common, both in terms of the striving for decentralization and time in the space, I think, which when that is combined with a protocol that's still continuing to build and improve after being around for so long, it's not really all that common these days. So certainly some shared values. And James, if people did want to join the Discord, what would be the best way for them to find the link? Do you have a URL you can read out, or I assume it's on the Hexagon Twitter account?
Yeah, it's on the Hexagon Twitter account. Yeah, that would most likely be the easiest, and then I believe it's also on the docs there. But yeah, easiest way to just go to the Twitter handle there.
Good stuff. Well, if and when Hexagon decides to, or Golem decides to run a Rocket Pool mini pool or get involved with Rocket Pool staking in any other way, certainly there will be no shortage of assistance from the Rocket Pool community on Discord, which is, as we know, very active, very supportive, and have played a key role in helping to grow Rocket Pool to the size it is today with over 2,000 node operators. I was actually just on a call before this one. I'm working through some collaboration for later in this week, and the copy still had reference to 1,700 plus node operators. So we're still growing and growing very quickly, and it's great to see that 2,000 milestone pass. Do we have anything else to chat about, Ken?
With Hexagon and Golem, I don't know. I think we've pretty much covered it, James. What do you think, or are there any aspects that we haven't covered that you feel is important for us to know about?
No, I think we've covered the base. I do really appreciate you all having me on. This has I definitely appreciate giving the spotlight to Hexagon, and I am really excited to collaborate with Rocket Pool and the community further. And I don't know if there's any other questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. But if everyone's feeling good, then yeah, I'm happy to drop the mic here and listen to the rest of the discussion going on in the spaces.
All right, I don't see any questions coming through the Twitter space here right now, but I am seeing a lot of thumbs up. So,
well, great. Yeah, thanks for everybody for listening, and then yeah, really appreciate your time.
All right. So Mav, as we kind of transition to the regular Rocket Pool scheduled programming for today, it looked like we had maybe three major areas that we wanted to cover in the remaining time that we had. We wanted to talk a little bit about the protocol development, in particular Atlas, that's coming up here. The big thing, at least in my mind, is ETH Denver, which is 20 days away for it. I know we're going to have a huge community showing out at ETH Denver. And you reminded me at the beginning of this call or late last night that we still had some marketing items where our call went too long last time when we did the bi-weekly updates. We've got a couple of those. So maybe we could jump into it a little bit. Let's take the first one with the protocol development and Atlas. I know Joe's not on, but Mav, what can you tell us? There's been Langers had come on a little bit and kind of confirmed a tentative estimated timeline. And then there was some discussion about when Shanghai and Capella might launch and whether or not Atlas was going to be in front or behind that. What are you hearing? What's the latest that you can share with us?
Well, first of all, at a high level, I debated whether I should say this, but I'm just going to say it. It's going to be a very big week for Rocket Pool. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of stuff that we have to finalize and communicate out on all these topics that we've discussed, or these three topics, right? Atlas, Ethember, and a bit of marketing content coming up. So yeah, all systems go with Rocket Pool. Yes, unfortunately Joe isn't on, but I can share the kind of high level regarding Atlas. So the first thing probably worth talking about is the audits. As we've said in the past, a lot of the discussions around when Atlas is dependent on the result of the audits. So we've had, well, actually now we can technically say we've had 2 rounds of audits with Sigma Prime and more recently Consensus Diligence. So I understand that their report is due out, I guess, US Monday, so now/today. But from what we've heard so far, in terms of the discussions and the questions that they've asked, it doesn't seem that there are any major items that they've identified. Obviously, I'm not really qualified to comment on that topic as far as what may or may not be major, but from the sounds of things, it's a pretty good result. So we can feel confident that the dates that have been given previously, or the range of dates, will still be valid. So to recap, we're kind of looking at I suppose an optimistic and a realistic, or best case, worst case kind of pair of dates. The first one being around the end of March, and the second one being about halfway through April. So even if there is a little bit of additional delay, never can be too sure with these things. It sounds like, based on the timeline for Shanghai, that Atlas will be released before Shanghai. So the protocol upgrade, just to recap, if this is news to anyone, there's kind of 2 ways that it can be pushed out. One is before Shanghai, and one is after. Depending on which of the 2 occurs, it has to be handled in separate ways, but that's set up so that we can deal with it whichever way around it works. So there's some pretty good news, and a couple of dates, although we still can't be exactly too certain about which of those 2 we're going to go with. But what we can be pretty certain is that there will be communication, certainly before the next community call, around when we can expect an overview Medium article, if that's not published already, when we can expect a kind of town hall voice chat like we did on Discord with Redstone, and hopefully a little bit more clarity around the actual final release date. So I know there were a couple of requests for deeper dives on Atlas. I think the town hall that we want to have will be relatively high level, but there may be people who want to discuss strategy or different ways to kind of play the upgrade, so to speak, or to optimize the decision-making process that they're going to be working through. And we can certainly facilitate those kind of events as well, if people want to get into the weeds on some of these additional details. I think that kind of covers where we're at with Atlas. So right now, cautiously optimistic. It's looking pretty good.
Okay. Let's maybe just go through that one more time here, just because I know a lot of people are listening and kind of planning for this thing, right? So I think I heard you say that we're looking at a testnet deployment of Atlas. Let me back up. That the audits seem very favorable, right? There would be a little bit of audit response, and at some point we would expect the audits to be released once Rocket Pool has a chance to respond to them, right? So the community could review the audits. That's been the past practice, and I would suspect it would continue to be the continued practice forward on those. That there would likely be, again, these dates are subject to change, but it is looking more likely that by the end of this month, maybe perhaps before the team gets on the airplane for ETH Denver, that there might be an Atlas deployment on the testnet, maybe Gorilla, right? I don't think they would have done the Shanghai by then, but we could all practice on Gorilla actually using Atlas pre-Shanghai and post-Shanghai over Gorilla. And if that holds true, then it would likely be that after ETH Denver in mid-March, sometime around there, paying attention to the rewards schedule, that Atlas would be deployed for real on mainnet, and assuming the timing holds true with the core devs, that would be just before Shanghai, and by the end of March, or early April, they haven't announced a date, but we would see then Shanghai happen. Is that kind of what I heard you say, that the timing, it may actually just work out perfectly?
Yeah, pretty much. So certainly Atlas will be live on testnet, and hopefully a good amount of testing already completed before we jump on that plane to Denver. And regarding the Shanghai timing, the latest I kind of heard was that that Shanghai is looking like second half of April. Certainly, if that is the case, then and I may have that wrong, or may not have the latest, but certainly if that is the case, then we expect Atlas before Shanghai. If Shanghai is earlier, especially if it ends up dropping in March, then that is a bit of a question mark.
Yeah, I too had heard some rumors that there was some challenges in the testing, and so it looks like a little bit later release for Shanghai than what they were first thinking. But I've only heard that secondhand, so we'll all have to pay attention, I guess, to the All Cores call, which I don't know is this week or coming up. But yeah, it will be kind of interesting to see how it plays. But it's sounding really good. To your second points, which was that there's really going to be two educational campaigns, it sounds like, from Rocket Pool. One of those is the Medium article. I'm very much looking forward to that. I enjoy Dave's writing greatly. I think it would really help kind of explain a lot of this. I know myself, I've created a nice flow chart kind of explaining withdrawals and the stages of mini pools for both skimming or as well as full withdrawals, partial withdrawals, full withdrawals, and I'll get that posted up. Linger's had a chance to kind of correct a couple of my misunderstandings on it, so I think it's pretty much in place. I think that'd be a helpful resource for node operators. But I personally really think that a good long discussion with Kane and really trying to understand not only the actual functions, the mechanics of Atlas and how it works, but also I think to just strategize a little bit about gameplay, so we don't all try to like rush through the door at the same time, or at least kind of know what we're getting into. If we decide to do that, would be good. But I would love to hear from others listening on this call if you think having a good AMA or chit chat space that's just focused on Atlas and LED8s and conversions and those sort of things, please post into trading or reach out, because I just don't know if that's just me that's interested in it, or if there is a larger community that would benefit from a little bit more in-depth, I'll call it strategy session, but at least a more in-depth discussion and analysis, so people can make informed decisions about what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Now let's change subjects here about the thing that I'm just getting really excited about. It's hard not to contain the enthusiasm for it, but we are like 20 days away, right? Do you realize you're going to have to get on an airplane, fly across the Pacific, and you're going to end up in a really weird place at ETH Denver? What is the latest, man? People are like chomping at the bit to find out the booth schedule. They want to know, is Rocket Pool going to do a social? What's going on? Does Mav need any help? People just want to do something to make this thing happen. What do you know? Walk us through it.
All right. So to go back to what I said at the start of this segment, there will be a lot of ETH Denver specifics communicated out this week. I think it was probably the previous chat we had together, Ken, or at least one of the other community calls where I mentioned we had a continual trickle of people wanting to volunteer at the booth, which is great. I've kind of made the decision to do a bit of a soft cap. So the roster Mark II has been drafted up. I expect within 24 hours that'll be out for people to have a look at. Again, while we are trying to make sure this is organized, it's not overly structured. If people change their dates, if they show up on the day, we can be flexible, we can accommodate, and at the same time if you indicate that you want to volunteer, but for whatever reason you can't or just change your mind, that's fine too. We can work with all of that. But I am aware that people probably want a bit of information. So, you can look forward to that coming out shortly. If not today, then certainly by tomorrow. Similarly with that, we'll be starting to communicate. Before I go on, we have recently, I believe it was a couple of days ago, selected our booth locations. So Ethtember have been going around in the order that people sign up to be sponsors and sorted out who is going to be where. Certainly good news for me that we are located right next to, I'm not sure if it's the coffee station, but at least one of the coffee stations, and rather a kind of central place in what they're calling the DeFi district. Again, for our volunteers, that could be potentially very helpful depending on what kind of night you had the night prior, to have easy access to some caffeine there. So along with that, we will be communicating out other kind of dates and times. To recap, the Rocket Pool team will be on site for the main event. So we're not tuning up for the hackathon that runs before that. We will be arriving on the 28th, but the 28th and the 1st will be kind of set up / jet lag recovery days. Not that there will be really much of the 28th left by the time we arrive, but certainly on the 1st we'll be busy with setup. We've been arranging logistics to get shirts brought in and some additional stickers printed, and some other merch made available. And Ken, you've very kindly helped to volunteer to help us get a node on site and plugged in. May not be necessarily doing its job, but we do want to have something physical to kind of showcase, and to perhaps distill any or to clear up any misconceptions people might have regarding kind of size, noise, power draw that people may have been getting confused with the whole proof of work mining hardware, which is, as we know, quite different. So that is also underway. We are also chatting with none other than Sleety, who has also kindly agreed to help us produce some content to promote Rocket Pool on site. We are going to be doing a two-pronged approach with one side of the booth kind of informally set aside for content around liquid staking and a bit of an introduction to Ethereum staking, and then the other side for node operators, potential node operators, or existing solo node operators who might be looking to migrate across. I think it's worth remembering that while people listening to this call are probably very well versed about Ethereum staking, there's probably a lot of people attending Ethtember who have no clue about even how Ethereum proof of stake works, let alone how to get involved. So we need to make sure that we can have content available to pitch to the two extremes, right? Node operators who may have been running nodes for longer than Rocket Pool's been live, and then at the other end, people who don't even know what proof of stake really is. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of agreement that Sleety does great work making some of these concepts easily accessible. So I'm looking forward to working with him on that. And for everything else, we're looking to get the ball rolling on this communication later in the week.
Wow, yeah, lots to unpack in there, and I think I think both of those are great. I mean, Sleety is just, his work is fabulous. The fact that the booth is going to be just like the protocol, a two-sided booth, right? And I think your perception that the only people that are really going to know staking is either going to be the Rocket Pool people that are there from the community, or if by chance one of the client team devs show up at the booth. Those are the only two groups of people. I suppose the occasional ETH staker that comes by and visits, but many of those are Rocket Poolers as well too. So I think if you're working the booth, you're going to have to explain this over and over again. So definitely watch as much rocket fuel as possible, start chatting in the Discord as much possible, and just come. It's going to be just a fabulous, fabulous event and conference that I'm absolutely stoked about. What about the social things? Has the team given any thought about trying to kind of set a date and pull down one? I see all these other protocols pick up every other date and hour, but what are we thinking? Is that still kind of in the works to be announced, or is there something you can give us a little alpha on, a little bit of bread?
We're in terms of dates and times, not quite yet. There's a couple of things in the works that are almost ready, and actually had another kind of development overnight in terms of another event that we might get involved with. So in the past, we've kind of talked about having a couple of rocket pool events. There may be 3 now. But yeah, in terms of deconflicting, we are aware of the other kind of associated events going on. So we'll make sure that people can deconflict that way. This will be also shared later in the week, potentially tomorrow, with at the same time as the kind of volunteering information. By the looks of things, pretty much everyone who's going to be coming along from the Rocket community, at least those who've completed the Google form, have expressed their intent to volunteer. So those two kind of things go together, both the volunteering information and then the other kind of events that you can get involved with. Of course, worth pointing out that there is certainly no requirement to volunteer. All the assistance is gratefully appreciated. And while, as Ken said, you may be having to talk a lot about staking, it's likely that there won't be highly technical questions. And even if there is, we're going to do our best to ensure there's at least one Rocket Pool team member, or failing that, one of our rocket scientists available at the booth at all times. There certainly will be a lot of opportunities to meet and network for everyone really, but certainly I can speak for myself that a lot of the conversations I've been having lately with other protocols, other projects, about just general collaboration and co-marketing. Usually the topic comes up about ETH Denver, either in terms of planning deadlines, and a lot of people are attending and are keen to meet up in person and chat. So that will be a big part of it for sure. But between the 6 of us on the team, and then the number of rocket scientists attending, just like Ken, we'll make sure that we do have some of that more technical expertise available. So no worries there. You will not be out of your depth. Again, if you're on this call or listening to the recording, you are more than qualified to be a volunteer.
Yeah, I fully agree that there's going to be enough people. There's depth in numbers that, even myself, I'll get stumped by somebody and asking something, but I know WAC is going to be there, right? The other rocket scientists are going to be there, right? Many of the community leaders are going to be there. So, there's always going to be somebody that can help somebody out if we can't figure it out. And I think, Mav, your perception that, for many of us attending, it's an opportunity to learn, to meet and enjoy the camaraderie of all of our Discord friends that we're meeting in life and in real person. But it's absolutely essential, I think, for protocols like Rocket Pool, for Dave and for Langers to actually, have time to go meet with the other partnerships, right? I mean, the road ahead for Rocket Pool isn't going to be really one about the technical staking, right? That's all kind of built out, especially with withdrawals coming out here in Shanghai. It's really now going to be about integrations and partnerships and DeFi integrations, or even like the presenter we had on, the special guest today from Hexagon, about working with other nonprofits that want to stake ETH and need a platform to provide a little bit greater return for their public goods efforts, right? These are the most critical meetings that the dev team needs to start having, is kind of this business development. And Mav, I assume you and the marketing are going to be playing a key role in that. So I see the folks that are working the booth, we kind of help take a load off and provide that availability and time resource, which is so critical at ETH Denver. We think that, oh my gosh, a whole week, how could you fill that up? But we think time flies in crypto. Just wait till it's ETH Denver. It's going to be start and over within a flash. So excellent, Mav. I'm definitely looking forward to it here. It's going to be great. let's take a look here at some of the marketing items. It's hard to believe that the biweekly is already a week old. It seems like an eon ago with everything that's been happening in the rocket pool space here over the weekend and so forth. But what did we miss in marketing, and what do you have kind of on deck in marketing that you'd like to share with the community about?
All right, yeah. So if you missed the introduction, we didn't quite get to finish the bi-weekly last time. So some of this information, if you're really plugged into the Rocket Pool ecosystem, might be a little bit dated now, and there certainly have been some developments since the bi-weekly was posted. I won't talk too much about those more recent developments. There are a couple of highlights worth talking about, but then obviously we'll have another bi-weekly out in a week's time with more recent news. But yeah, we'll quickly go through the items listed on the Reddit bi-weekly update under the media and marketing section. And I was talking to the guys yesterday on our team stand-up that for some reason, this happens to me every week, at least so far this year, that every Monday, which is obviously for most of the world Sunday or a Sunday night, I kind of log on and see what's been going on. I mean, that's kind of a bit of a white lie because I don't really ever log off except to sleep. But it always seems a little bit quiet out there, right? Because as I said, for most people, apparently they have lives outside of this industry and they have other things that they like to do on Sundays. But certainly the number of mentions of Rocket Pool and the activity on Twitter, for example, is a little bit muted. And then without fail, every Tuesday, I'm surprised by the uptick in content that comes out, and it is becoming a little bit of a repetition by now. But yeah, things are not slowing down in the LSD space, and certainly for the previous bi-weekly, which covered content, I suppose as far back as 3 weeks ago, given that it's 1 week old now. The first point just highlights how strong that presence has been of Rocket Pool. And a big part of this comes down to some of the people on this call putting in some great work, engaging with all the Rocket Pool content that's available on Twitter. I do mostly focus on Twitter, obviously. Rocket Pool's a big part of Rocket Pool's history is Reddit itself, and bi-weekly updates are posted there too. But certainly there are there's Twitter tracking and companies or protocols that do other sorts of tracking across social media platforms. One in the Web3 space is Lunar Crush. So they have what's called, I think it's called, or at least some various rankings in terms of how they place token tickers based on how many times they're mentioned and who is mentioning them, to try and filter out spam, which I think they do a pretty good job of. And at a certain point, they rank Rocket Pool as number 4. So they're talking about all the various tokens that are available out there, right? I'm not too sure if like 2 of those 4 are Bitcoin and Ethereum, even if they're not, even if we're talking about like more on the altcoin side. Certainly that's a pretty impressive showing for Rocket Pool, being the 4th highest. CoinGecko at a certain point noticed and tweeted that we were the number 1 trending token on their platform. So a lot of people searching and wanting to find out more about Rocket Pool. And then again, at a certain point, we, as measured by Token Terminal, RPL was the 3rd highest by new token holders. So whichever way you want to look at it, people are talking about Rocket Pool, wanting to find out more about Rocket Pool and getting involved in Rocket Pool. So certainly great to see, and helps to give some numbers to back up what most of us already know, and that there is a lot of orange content out there. And then, of course, that can be seen in the rapid growth of node operators, hitting that 2,000 mark, which was great. Then, so a lot of this so-called LSD narrative has been with a view towards Shanghai and withdrawals. There's been a bit of uncertainty, even a bit of FUD around what exactly will happen at withdrawals. And some people out there have attempted to try and make some sense of this, see what will happen. What will people with locked ETH do once it becomes available to them, or at least once the withdrawal queue becomes available to them? Will node operators stop running their nodes? Will they run more? Will they change how they run their nodes? There was one survey, sure, only 105 Ethereum stakers, so not the largest sample out there, but the results were nonetheless quite positive for Rocket Pool in terms of, and I suppose you could say the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole, that at least for these 105 people, there didn't seem to be any kind of intent to get out, dump their ETH, but instead interest in staying involved and potentially moving across to Rocket Pool, which, as we know, will become possible, and Atlas will make that even more attractive for people running their nodes solo. Then, so as part of ETH Denver, Rocket Pool's attendance, having that booth there, we did take a sponsorship position, one of the higher ones, and there was a bit of content that ETH Denver put out about that, and there will be a lot more to come once we're live on site. I'm sure there'll be a lot of social media content, a lot of photos posted, and a lot of excitement about Rocket Pool's presence there. Then for this one, which I believe is our longest to date, I'm fairly confident it's the longest bi-weekly I've put together. I've focused more on the media content that went out. It seems that there was a new thread about Rocket Pool, certainly every day, maybe every couple of hours. But one worth noting was the one that Aura put together. As you'll probably know, IMC, the Incentive Management Committee, which is a subset of the Protocol DAO, the PDAO, they're working with Aura to facilitate rETH liquidity, and Aura put out a Twitter thread about the performance of said liquidity, and long story short, it's looking pretty good. I think it might have been since this update, there was some subsequent content that went out. Maybe it's up here in integration. Sorry, I'm just scrolling up. Around another review of Rocket Pool liquidity and its suitability for DeFi integrations. Long story short there, that other review also said that it's looking good and highly suitable for integration and comparable with the industry benchmark, shall we say. Then on that media coverage, I attempted to list all of the kind of noteworthy pieces that were put out. I'm going to do a bit of a count up here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, there's a dozen, probably more pieces. So that runs to roughly one a day that someone was putting out about Rocket Pool, or the LSD sector as a whole, with kind of a mention of Rocket Pool in there. Again, a lot of these media companies kind of share or license each other's content, or maybe they just straight up copy it. I don't know. But yeah, you may have come across some of these pieces under a different name or published by a different website. But yeah, some big names in there, including Forbes, CoinGecko again, Altcoin Daily too. Then we had a exciting community call that was with Justin Drake as a special guest, who is a prominent Ethereum researcher and had some of his thoughts to share with us, which were quite bullish, I have to say, and quite positive for the future of liquid staking and for Rocket Pool. The recording is available on YouTube, and we have not forgotten about the promise to cut that up into sections, highlighting some of the more noteworthy things that Justin talked about, and making those available too on YouTube soon. There was also a community call with Pendle Finance. We had a special guest on one of the more recent DeFi integrations, and then subsequently after this bi-weekly call was out, we had Miso Finance, and of course, as usual, those recordings are also available on YouTube. Just grab a quick drink of water. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'll give you a chance to kind of catch your breath there, but yeah, it's kind of amazing all of the activity that is happening there. Maybe when I see Dave at ETH Denver, I'll twist his arm a little bit or bend his ear, and I'll see if I can't get him to get another intern for you there, Mav.
Yeah, it'd be quite helpful to have two interns at opposite time zones, and that way we can have 24-hour coverage. Maybe that can be an efficiency upgrade that's tacked onto Atlas. Who knows? But yeah, speaking of interns, while we don't yet have that official guide to Atlas that Dave's working on, we did have a bit of an informal thread put out touching on some of the key concepts by the Rocket Pool intern, and that is how Atlas can facilitate Rocket Pool to scale. So some of this content is probably not new. It's been talked about by various community members, Marceau, Jasper, and others, but it is a good reference if you want to go and have a look, or if you know of anyone who is wanting to learn more about Atlas. Until that Medium article is out, this is one of a few places that you could send them to kind of learn a little bit more about Rocket Pool, especially when it comes to the question about the deposit pool queue. Although on that topic, it was great to see, at least for a brief period, haven't checked it lately, that MetaMask was showing Rocket Pool as the highest APR of the two protocols that it supports natively within the app there. So Rocket Pool slightly above Lido. Right now, the queue kind of makes that a bit of a moot point. But as we know, that queue is set to be addressed with Atlas. And yeah, we can see how that could drive a significant volume across to Rocket Pool. If Rocket Pool is being highlighted as the highest APR, hopefully we can maintain or reclaim that status when it really matters most post-Atlas. We then had an interesting and humorous call with a few team and community members, and Hudson Jameson, who's a prominent member of the Ethereum community, attempting to set up a Rocket Pool mini pool in what I have been told is a slightly unorthodox and technical way. Maybe not the best example for learning, but certainly a bit of a laugh if you want to go and watch that. You should be able to get to the recording from the Twitter link, which is posted in the biweekly.
Yeah, I caught the latter half of that one, and it was definitely worth a couple of chuckles throughout it. So that was some good times. Yeah, so now I have a couple of questions on that as I know we're reaching the top of the hour here, but two things. One, you had kind of expressed a little bit of concern at the beginning of the year that the whole buzz or narrative around LSD staking might fade out before Atlas or before ETH Denver. What's kind of your take now? It seems like there's still quite a bit of activity talking about staking in LSD. Do you think we're going to be able to ride this wave all the way through to Atlas?
I think it's looking pretty likely. I suppose one of the concerns was that something else shiny and new would come along, and then we know how fast things move in this space, and what relatively short attention spans people tend to have, myself included. Especially when you spend all day on social media trying to keep track of everything that's happening and all the content that's coming out. So I guess there was always a risk that something else, some new narrative would pop up that would turn people's attentions away from liquid staking just long enough that that kind of hype stopped building. It seems that there's been something around AI protocols involved with that. I'm not really too sure. If anything, that sounded like it might have been that shiny new thing, but to me it seems it really hasn't caught on for whatever reason. There are a couple of larger kind of crypto influencers who have been talking about LSDs and continue to do so, and that has probably helped to a certain extent. Not necessarily talking about Rocket Pool, but about the space as a whole and potentially some other protocols. I think that's also helped to propel the attention through. So yeah, at this point, as you say, 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks out from December, I don't think we really have any concerns there. So it's good to see for once, a topic like liquid staking, which to a certain extent could be viewed as somewhat boring, has managed to capture people's attention for as long as it has done.
Yeah, and were you able to actually take a little bit of a vacation yet, or did that just run over with all these events here?
Yeah, not really. We did have our New Zealand National Day on Monday. So for me, 2 days ago, called Waitangi Day. So I did a bit of a slow day, a half day on Monday. But as I'm sure Joe would, or any of the team members would, back me up on if they were here, that just really means that there's more stuff for you to do on the Tuesday. So maybe we'll see what happens after ETH Denver. Kane and I will be staying on for a little bit. It may very well end up being kind of an extension in terms of engaging with the community and at least a day on the slope skiing. So we'll see how much of a holiday that really is. I'm expecting it to be not much of one at all. And yeah, unfortunately, as we get back down to this part of the world, we're then going to be staring down the barrel of an imminent Atlas release. So I think maybe we'll wait until the dust settles kind of more towards the middle of the year. I think by then also it'll be starting to get a little bit cold down in this part of the world. So might be looking for a little bit of a break to some warmer weather. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope that you get some R&R time at some point here. But yeah, I think it's going to be a whirlwind between everything happening now, you getting on a plane, doing ETH Denver, talking rocket pool literally 24 hours a day. Don't plan on getting any sleep while you're there, and then trying to do the mountain retreat. But fortunately, you've decided to go with all the other rocket pullers that are going to want to talk rocket pool 24/7, and you could sleep on the plane ride back there to New Zealand. That's where you'll get some downtime, and then after that, then come back out, launch Atlas, and then do Shanghai, and it's going to be a whirlwind for the next 60 days.
Yeah, it sure will. Worth pointing out that I kind of missed it, but 20 minutes ago, Joe posted a little bit of an update on the technical side in trading. It's about 20 or so messages back. You don't have to scroll very far, touching on kind of Atlas, testnet, audits and the like. So certainly that would be a better thing to look at. If you're
Perfect. Listening to us yelling into just the open space, right, Joe? Next time, come on to the call. And I guess
there are a couple of items still left to cover off from the marketing section of the biweekly. I will just run through them pretty quickly.
Go for it.
So there was a Launchpad episode which is hosted by Whack, and he interviewed Patches, so that's worth a listen. Obviously, Patches being one of the rocket scientists and probably very familiar to anyone who's sought out technical support for their node. Then we had a crypto YouTuber talk about Rocket Pool. There've been a couple of these recently, so you'll probably find links to one or two more in the next bi-weekly. So that was great to see. A little bit of content on a different platform in a video format. Then there was an update from RocketScan. They now display attestation performance. So a nice little colourful graph there if you want to check that out. Then a couple of things left to go. There's a little bit of an interesting story that developed on Twitter. I feel like maybe you had to be there to understand it. If you click through to the link, you kind of see how it all went down. But essentially, it was some commentary from a niche but rather prominent Ethereum ecosystem influencer, let's say, about the strength and resolve of the Rocket Pool community when it comes to being champions for decentralization, and how the example that they gave kind of came true, and it resulted in some community members putting together a proposal to the Nouns DAO to see if they'd be interested in staking with Rocket Pool. The last point is that it was an interesting event where a whale made use of the Maker DeFi integration, and they minted a whole lot of DAI, which bumped up the total to date by around 50%. There's subsequently been an interesting development with Maker looking to tweak some of the settings, which may make it more attractive. There's also, just generally continued progress on the DeFi integration space, including with a couple of protocols. Actually, I think one of them may have already tweeted about a Twitter space that we're going to have with them towards the end of the week. So once I jump off this call, I'll get a retweet out and make sure that the Discord event section is updated accordingly. But they're continuing to roll through. And then another noteworthy thing being the Coinbase listing Mark II. To be honest, I don't really use centralized exchanges at all. I think I have a Coinbase account, something that I probably need to brush up on a little bit. But I think like others, it was a little bit confusing for me regarding the previous quote-unquote listing when it comes to just how Rocket Pool or the RPL token is accessible via Coinbase, and certainly if you're in other jurisdictions as well. But now it's more of a, I guess you could say, full listing and release. Hopefully that means there are some flow-on effects, like our friends at Uniswap being able to update and remove that warning that they have right now, since RPL is listed on a large, if not the largest and most significant US-based centralized exchange.
Yeah, that's a good point to kind of interconnect that two protocols there. I'd forgotten about that warning there in Uniswap, and that would be good to know. Yeah. Any other things that you have that you think it would be important for us to kind of know? I'm thinking we should probably mention just the latest post to the protocol channel about the grieving exploit, right? I saw this morning when I woke up that there's a bot going around causing a little bit of mischief. The important things, if you're listening to this and you're like, wait, what? No funds are at risk, right? The protocol is perfectly safe. But there's an annoyance if you're one of the node operators that's above 150% and you're attacked by the bot. The ODAO is going to get a proposal here, presumably later on today, to put a patch out there that will fix that exploit. And I guess in Atlas, we'll have a more permanent or a little bit more elegant solution than just the patch. But if you're not yet affected by the bot and you're over 150%, and you think you might need access to your excess RPL tokens, you might want to withdraw them. If not, you can just let it ride.
Yeah, that all went down for me last night, and this morning I've kind of been up and straight into it. So there may have been some more developments in the interim, but for now, probably the best place to direct anyone who's curious to learn more is the Discord under the protocol announcement section. There's a post from Langers about, 10 hours ago. There's also a little bit of ongoing discussion in a thread underneath that post where people are discussing various things about the context around how it will be fixed, and a link to a further discussion there. And then potentially, it looks like there's a POAP opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to get to the important part. If you are affected by the bot, right, you can get a POAP. I've never really kind of said, man, I kind of hope my account is affected by it. I want the POAP.
yeah, not wanting to kind of downplay what could be potentially a significant event for some people if they were, I don't know, if they had plans to rebalance their portfolio or they had other commitments. Obviously, people have real lives and they have expenses. So hopefully no one was affected too badly by this. But if you did want to kind of look on the lighter side of things, I guess I can say personally, not necessarily in an official capacity, I think it's a great initiative. And yeah, Mentor has kind of provided that opportunity if anyone wants to. There's a list, it looks like. But anyway, that opportunity is available, so I'm sure it won't take you too long in the Discord to figure out how to avail yourself of that POAP should you be interested.
Yeah. Okay, Mav, I think we've covered all of the topics now. Hopefully we didn't miss any more of the marketing ones. Sorry, I forgot to scroll down on the bi-weekly there earlier. I thought we had covered them all. Any other items that you could think about that we haven't covered that you feel is important for the community to know?
Oh man, I'm sure there are. But nothing comes to mind. I'm just going to have a bit of a scroll back. We've kind of talked about the rocket scientists on the... probably another point, which we'll get a tweet out about again straight after this call, is the liquidity provision on Velodrome, which is one of the two opportunities on Optimism. There's been a little bit of a tweak, shifting incentives from what they call the stable pool across to the volatile pool. So that's something that if you are providing liquidity on Optimism via Velodrome, you may want to have a look and consider if it necessitates a change to your LP strategy.
Okay. And then do you know if we've got a chit chat planned for later on in this week or not?
We probably should do one. I think it's been a week or two since we've had a chit chat. We do have a Twitter space I mentioned kind of before. That is listed in the Discord event section as a bit of a TBC. I'll be adding some context there. It's not going to be hosted by Rocket Pool, but I will be there chatting with a DeFi protocol about Rocket Pool. That's kind of earlier on in the day. I think we'll have some time to do a Rocket Pool chit chat afterwards. And yeah, actually, thinking out loud here, by that point, we should have more Ethereum information out. So it's a good opportunity for people who want to chat about that to join and have a discussion. And the usual time is on the spot UTC conversion. I think it's 1 a.m. UTC on the Friday. It's 2 p.m. for me anyway. So unfortunately, a little bit late for European listeners. But yeah, please come along if you're away, and we'll see you there in Discord.
Okay. Sounds good so far here. Any other things, Matt, before we call it the end of the day here?
I think we're good, actually. Made pretty good time for this one. I think it's at an hour 10 or so.
Yeah, we did pretty good, and yeah, look forward to, I guess, talking to everybody here on this Thursday's chit chat. It's always good because we get a little bit more engagement from the community, a lot of discussions. There's just a tremendous amount of stuff happening here. And while we were talking, I saw that Mr. Whackman has released today's rocket fuel, so I can find out what I've missed in trading in the last hour and 10 minutes that we've been talking. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
Yeah, always worth a watch. But thanks, Ken, for hosting. Thanks, James, if you're still there, from Hexagon, for coming on as our special guest. And yep, still there.
Yeah, I am. Really enjoyed the conversation. Really appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, looking forward to maybe seeing you guys at ETH Denver as well.
Yeah. Please come up and introduce yourself. We'd love to meet in real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're going to have the big orange booth in the DeFi section.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely come hunt you guys down then.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's go ahead and call it a wrap here on this call. And I look forward to chatting with everybody in trading and later on this week in the chit chat.
Thanks, everyone. Catch you later.
Take care.
All right.